Welcome to Drones Zone, the podcast where we cover drones and related technologies. My name's Sean. Today, my special guest is Michelle Blicavs from Surveyors Australia. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi, Sean.
Before we're going to go a bit deeper, I'm going to go through Michelle's bio. Michelle Blicavs is a Chief Executive Officer at Surveyors Australia, where they focus on building surveying businesses that thrive. Michelle is passionate about small business and a strong advocate for the surveying profession, providing support, representation, and training for members across Australia. That's a lot of work to do for you, Michelle.
It's certainly a bigger job than the one I signed up to, but we've had such a need across the country that our work has expanded, and we're really excited now to be representing, as many surveyors as we can across Australia and hoping to grow our membership.
So before we go into Surveyors Australia, let's understand a little bit about yourself, your background.
Sure. Well, I actually started in the bus industry and spent 15 years working in transport, local buses in the Parramatta, Sydney region, which was great. Really enjoyed that. But with some changes in government, I moved into the social space and worked in youth housing, which was kind of a different side of government that I hadn't worked with before. When I was in transport, I worked with the Department of Transport and planning to some extent. And then when I moved into youth housing, got to work with the social services area and some of the other areas of government, which was really great, really enjoyed it. But it was through that I actually found politics, which is a strange thing, but ended up running for a state seat in Wollongong and ultimately became a Wollongong councillor, where I was for 6 years. And there I was opened up to the whole world of planning and land lot creation and the needs of community and a whole range of really, really interesting issues. And it was a really fun time in my life. A lot of hard work, but a really fun time. And it was when I finished there that I took on the role with surveyors and began working for the Association of Consulting Surveyors in New South Wales. And through that role, was exposed to some of what was happening across Australia. And I'm now the CEO at Surveyors Australia. We've rebranded, and we're looking after surveyors all around the country and have members firms across the country. So I've always worked with small business. The bus industry that I was in was a family-run business for 100 years. It was 100 years old in Parramatta. And so I'd always been involved with family business and small businesses. And when I moved to Wollongong and was working with youth housing, it was a not-for-profit, so there wasn't a lot of money. So I had to have a side hustle, and I was coaching small businesses and helping in the bookkeeping side mostly. I've got mostly a strong financial background, and spent 6 months working for an accounting firm, but that was 6 months of my life I'll never get back. Didn't quite enjoy that, but I did enjoy the business advisory component of that and went into, again, consulting. So when I came over to ACS, it was really easy to work in with an organisation that's mission was to build thriving businesses. And we've really been able to expand what we're doing in the business side. In fact, we have a business academy where we actually teach surveyors all about business, which is something that I absolutely love and thrive on myself. Really love seeing them because they go to school. And Sean, you probably went to school and learned all about the technical component of your job. And then one day somebody said, great, now you can run your own thing. And what did you know about business? And
Not
so,
much.
yeah, so we try to teach them all about strategy and marketing and a whole heap of other things, financial management, risk, succession, and people is a really key part of what we teach as well. So that's been really, really exciting for us. And we think that surveying, well, I think too, that surveying has a long history. It's been around for thousands of years and it's going to be around for thousands more. So we need to have highly successful businesses. And that's what I'm really, really passionate about. And I get to do both my joys. I get to work with amazing people. I get to teach business and coach in that space. And I get to use the political skills that I learned when I was in local government at an advocacy level on behalf of surveyors. So really, I've just got the perfect job.
It sounds very interesting, and obviously got quite a diverse background as you just covered. Um, I presume the business academy and the business side of things that you've just talked about. Do you find that surveyors are is that something they're interested in learning and developing themselves as business owners or as surveyors working for a business?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both actually. When we started the Business Academy, it was designed for we had a new category of membership, and it was emerging firms. So it was businesses that had started within a 3 to 5 year period, and we had 20 people sign up immediately under that category. And so we thought, wow, that's 20 guys, and mostly guys. Let's be real. Surveying's got 3% women. That's probably a whole nother
3%.
podcast. But we had all these guys sign up, and we're like, wow, that's 20 guys out there that have learned how to run their surveying business from the person who taught them surveying, who learned how to run their business from the person who taught them how to do surveying, who learned how to run their business from the person who taught them how to do surveying. Because surveying is one of the oldest professions we have. The Surveyor General was the first person appointed to the colony of New South Wales before the governor landed on these shores of Sydney. And so, surveyors have been teaching surveying down the generation, but unfortunately some of the business skills that we need have not perhaps been learned, or we haven't changed or uplifted some of that with current thinking and current knowledge. So it's really been a fabulous academy. We've expanded. We started in New South Wales. We now teach it in Queensland, Victoria, New Zealand, and we're hoping to expand into WA next year.
Okay.
And we have people
Um,
flying from all over the country to come to it as well. So it's great.
so interesting. You just talked about 3% women. Why do you think it's so low?
I think because you become what you can see, and I think we've had male surveyors forever and ever and ever. In fact, there's something out there on the internet that you can look up back in I think it's 1920 sometime, might be 1930, was a post that somebody said in an article once upon a time that, heaven forbid we ever have women in this profession. So, when they used to have to carry chains and they would measure with chains, they're quite heavy. I mean, I don't know if I could carry them, quite frankly. But of course, today we have much newer technology. We have lighter technology. Um, uh, Women can do it in some cases better than the men, from what I see and hear. Certainly, much of the online component and the digital data management side of what it is that we do, they're excellent at that. And so we are seeing an uptick in women. But, I mean, when was the last time you drove past a female surveyor on the side of the road? So there's not that many of them, but we are actively in schools under our Surveying Careers banner trying to promote 2 girls and 2 women to say that, in fact, we need them. We know they do a great job, and we really want to see them, choosing a career in surveying.
Yeah, actually, obviously being in a drone business, I do come across a fair few surveyors, and I have started to see a few more female
Yeah,
in the
yeah, there's
field,
definitely a
which
change
is great.
happening. Mm,
Yeah,
mm,
and interesting. You did touch on I think what I've also seen the stubbornness for change with
mm.
surveyors. Probably one of the hardest industry to kind of penetrate, if you want to say, from a technology perspective, because they're very set
Yeah.
in their ways, and I'm sure you will talk to that a bit further.
Well, and I think that's partly because of the regulations. They are one of the most highly regulated professions, and they have significant study that they must do. This kind of study they have to do is equivalent to a surgeon or a barrister. Um, um, they have to do a 4 year degree, then they have to work for 2 years, then they have to do their licensing and registration. And so it can take them 8 to 10 years to become a licensed or registered surveyor. So that's quite a lot of effort. That's quite a lot of work. And so they spend so much time getting to that level that some of the other things, and they're so precise, there's so much precision in what we do, that those things can't change. We need to keep that precision. It's very important. Surveyors underpin the cadastre, all the land parcels around us, the home that you're coming to us from, the home I'm coming to us from. This was designed, it's what the government taxes us on. So it's really, really important to the government that our guys
Yeah.
get it right. And so it really is a critical path for our whole economy. Surveyors underpin the whole economy in the world, actually, the global economy. Well, especially those that are taxed based on land use, which certainly
Yeah.
we are here in Australia. And so, it's the core of everything that we do. No job starts or finishes without a surveyor having been on site. They're absolutely critical to everything that's being built in the built environment.
Understood. So, how many members have you currently got, Michelle?
We represent the businesses in surveying, and so we have close to 500 firms across Australia,
Okay.
which is a good sort of number, but not all of them. So we invite any other firms to consider getting involved with us. And then once the business is a member, all of their staff get member benefits from being
Yep.
part of us. And we try to look after all of the staff as well, not just the principals in the business. In fact, right now we're running a webinar series on surveying essentials for non-surveyors. So for admin staff, potentially for draftees, for others that might, planners, engineers, any others that might be working alongside surveyors or inside a surveying firm that sort of don't understand some of that terminology. What is this word cadastre that we use, and some of the other tech terms that they use. So we're trying to explain that and explain just why the role is so important.
So, I've got the website on there.
Thank
So,
you.
for any firms that who haven't joined you, could you probably elaborate a little what benefits they would get by joining?
Yeah, so I mean, it's our vision is to see thriving surveying businesses, but we exist to promote, support, and represent the profession. So some of the ways that we support the profession is through providing advice to anybody within the firm around some of the things that they're dealing with. So we offer HR advice, we offer legal advice, we have some financial advice that we can provide as well through our partners. We provide training and upskilling at what we think all levels of the organisation, for junior staff as well as senior staff. CPD for those that need, their license and registration. But we actually think everybody in the firm should be getting continuing professional development. So we track that for every staff member because we think that, good organisations are training their staff and regularly trying to upskill them. So that's some of the things we do around the support. We also do, salary surveys to work out kind of what is the current going rate of different levels within the organisations. We run an
Yep.
hourly rate survey to kind of work out and to benchmark perhaps what sorts of rates are being charged across the country for different types of work, including drones. In fact, in our salary survey, we ask about drone operators and the data as well, the data management
Yep.
side of it. So not just the use of the drone, but the analysis afterwards. Very important. The whole component, right? It's not about just the fun you have flying the things. There's a whole lot of extra stuff that has to be done. So we ask about that, and we include that in our hourly rates as well, so that it helps give people a bit of a guide, especially people going into business. What rates should they be charging? One of the challenges I think we have in the professional services industry, which is about 80% of Australia right now, is in the professional services knowledge sector. And so what we do is we sell our time, and we sell our value, and we sell our knowledge and our expertise. And some people value that more highly than others. And what we want to try and do is set a bit of a benchmark and give people a bit of a guide to help them understand where they might want to price their services, how they might want to pay their staff, because our Surveyors Award is lacking in many, many areas, and it's not something that's easily changed. So we try to provide extra advice and support to our members on that front. So that's the support
Okay.
part. The promote part is obviously promoting surveying, doing podcasts such as this, talking to government. We do quite a lot of advocacy, which is in the represent space as well as the promote space. But we have a magazine called The Surveyor. I encourage you to jump online on our website and have a look at that. But we use that as a promotional tool. So it goes to all of our members, but actually we produce Only a third goes to our members, two-thirds go to others and other industry groups and others that we think need to understand who surveyors are and what surveyors do. And it's an opportunity to promote a professional, a practice, and a project within surveying, as well as news and bits that might be coming from our profession and other areas that we deal with. So that's a really great resource for everybody, and encourage you to jump online. It was actually in 2020, I think I've got my year right, was the number one business to business magazine in the world, won an international award.
Yeah. I think
Beat
this
the
is the one
cars,
that
beat the cooking, surveying all the
very
way.
good. Is this the one
So
that
that's,
comes up quarterly?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So that's promotion. And then the represent. So we're very, very strong on advocacy. It's one of the reasons our organisation was founded, was to do advocacy at a federal level. We're really well known for the demand study that we do, which is the book that we do into determining the skill shortage. So it's right here on my desk, but it talks about, here's what the government and other developers have announced that they're going to build. They're going to build a metro, they're going to build a motorway, they're going to build a bridge, they're going to, build a port. What are they going to be? A gas line, So how many surveyors do we need to do that work? And so we produce that every 5 years after the census. And we know that that we're about 2,000 surveyors short in the country right now.
Right.
So, that has helped inform some of the other things we do, like the surveying careers that goes into schools to promote, surveying to students so that we can meet the skills gap. I mean, I know everybody's got a skills gap now after COVID, but we've had ours for many, many years. And it's certainly been a challenge for our industry to try and meet the need there. And one of the other things we do alongside that is we've developed a training organisation to deliver the certificate in surveying and spatial information and the diploma of surveying to try and meet our own skill shortage. So
Right. Okay.
lots on. That's really what we do and why we encourage people to get involved, because we want to be looking after all surveyors everywhere and representing them as best we can.
So you've talked about approximately looking after about 500 firms.
Mm.
What are some of the challenges that they raise to you, obviously, that you got to obviously manage? I'm sure they're quite varying.
Yeah, yeah. And look, every state is slightly different, but generally they're the same kinds of problems. And so one of the challenges we have is many of them work in the land development space. And so trying to get houses and lots out of the ground can sometimes be a challenge when you have to deal with utilities and local councils and state government agencies. And so we will advocate on behalf of surveyors to those bodies, as well as ministers and government within state, local, and federal needs. We've recently had some challenges with the CFMEU in Victoria, who decided that surveyors could no longer do set out on sites. And so that's certainly been a very, very big piece for us to try to deal with and help government understand why that's a problem. Also try to help the union understand why they perhaps don't want construction workers doing set outs. There's quite a lot of risk involved in that. And so, yeah, that's certainly been one of the biggest challenges of recent times that we've been dealing with. We advocate with the surveyors boards. Every state and territory has their own board of surveyors that look after the licensed and registered surveyors. And so there's a lot of training that's required in that space, as well as advocacy around the regulations. So there's a different surveying act in every state and territory that they have to abide by. And so we will advocate to the surveyors boards or the surveyor general, depending on the issue, around what the challenges might be there. We deal with the titles office. Surveying covers 17 government portfolios on average.
Right.
So we've got to deal with potentially 17 government agencies, 17 ministers in every state and every territory and federally. So that's a lot of people to deal with. And we're a relatively small profession. There's only about 16,000 surveyors in the country. 19,000 by the time you add on the planners and drafters and engineers that work alongside them within those surveying firms. The ABS identifies that as, well, our data suggests that it's about 18,000. We need 20,000, hence the shortage, but 16,000 of those are surveyors and technicians. And so that's a lot of people to be looking after and to be representing, and a lot of needs that go on around the country and in different states, and a lot of letters to be written and meetings to be had. So,
Lots of
yeah,
meetings.
that's
And when you talk about 19,000, including drafts and technicians,
good.
how many of them are actually licensed surveyors?
Only three and a
Approximately
half thousand. Yeah, only three
three
and
and
a
a half
half
thousand.
thousand out of the 16,000 are licensed.
Yeah,
So there's a good 12 to 14,000 ish. It depends. The numbers are a bit like they're a snapshot in time, so that's something that's
yeah,
important to
of
remember.
course.
But
Yeah,
we would say that there's about 12,000 that have no licensing or credentialing or accreditation at all, that are not covered by regulation. Now, what most of the acts say is that, and what most of the surveyors general will say is that the registered and licensed surveyors provide supervision to all those other surveyors, but that's not necessarily the case. That's only the case when we're working on boundary definition. And so, if there's no boundary definition, like with the set out of a house, perhaps that has already been connected to a boundary, or to a high rise building or a tunnel or a road or a bridge, then there is nothing available. Our counterparts have a certificate, the Geospatial Council of Australia have a certification program that we're talking with them about. We'd like to see that rolled out nationally and be implemented, and have more of an uptake across the profession. And that's something that we're working really closely now to look at. We'd really like to have something ready to implement by early in the new year.
okay. So I want to touch a little bit on drones now, because you obviously
Great.
talked about licensed surveyors, and we know that lots of drone operations are run not necessarily from a survey business, but drone companies themselves are drone businesses. How do you see that helping with potentially some of the, I think you mentioned around 2,000 surveyors in shortfall? Do you see drones helping that in the next 1 to 3 year period?
Yeah, look, certainly. I mean, drones and some of the newer technology, drones, laser scanners, all of those, that new equipment that's coming out now. Not that drones is that new, but it's
Yeah,
it's a great help, particularly in mining. Can I say? I think in the mining space, to be measuring the quarries and the loads that come out and so on, it's been really, really helpful. The other place that's been really helpful is in control. Checking along boundary lines and railway crossings, and not railway crossings, but those railways that drop off the edge of a cliff. Monitoring. Sorry, that's the word I'm thinking of.
yeah,
Monitoring. So in the monitoring space, it's really, really critical, and I think they've been able to use them for that. I saw a presentation recently on drones that have been used for creeks and lakes and riverbeds. That difficult to access. So any of these difficult to access things. Don't get me wrong, surveyors do like to get on a paddleboard or in a canoe or in a boat, but sometimes there's quite a length that you've got to traverse. And so having the drone is really great. So I think they work really well in regional areas. And can I just say, I know a couple of registered and licensed surveyors that love to say that they're a pilot before they're a registered or licensed surveyor. So getting that
right.
CASA license is pretty key for many of them. They loved the fact that they can call themselves pilots. So that's pretty cool. But it is a challenge for us in the cities. So it's really big in
Of
mining.
course.
It's great in construction, in regional areas, in great big greenfield sites. If you're doing a great big paddock, possibly in some of the renewable space, they'll be quite useful also. Um, but the challenge is in the cities. So CASA is a challenge, and trying to, you just can't fly them in most places because there's planes and lots of them. I've seen a satellite
Yeah,
picture of how many planes are in the sky, and sometimes it's a bit scary because I catch a lot of planes. But they certainly are being used. The photogrammetry and LiDAR is getting better and better all the time. And so with each new sort of model that's coming out, they're able to access more data. They're able to go for longer periods of times as the battery life gets longer. And so they become more and more useful. And I think also there's a little bit of a some of the prices are coming down as well. I mean, a surveyor's not going to go to JB Hi-Fi and buy the drone. You know, they're not going to get the off-the-shelf model that wedding photographers might use. Perhaps
Yeah.
I've been at a wedding where they used the drone. That was pretty exciting. But surveyors are not going to use. Surveyors need a much more high quality because they need the lidar and they need to be able to gather the data and use that data afterwards. So something that's got a longer time use without the battery going flat. I mean, I've heard some great stories of where they use it. Obviously, I've seen some great pictures, in mines going down, pits going
Yeah.
ahead of where the men have to go. So from a safety perspective, they're absolutely fabulous. They're saving us all sorts of time. They're saving us for WHS, all of those things. But I mean, one of my favourite stories around how surveyors have used drones is actually that the Veteran Affairs engaged a surveying firm to go into New Guinea, I think it was New Guinea, to scan the surface for veterans that had lost their lives, for the
Right.
bones and and so I mean that kind of stuff, that's amazing to think
Yeah.
that that you don't need to be a licensed or registered surveyor to do that, of course, but it's really great to see surveyors being engaged because they've got the better equipment, they produce the better data, you're going to get a better outlay because they're more highly trained, more highly skilled, and you're going to get a really good result from them. So we think surveyors using drones are fabulous, and really encourage any surveyors out there listening to give it a try, but do value the service that you're providing, and understand that the quality and the value comes from the time that's taken you to learn how to get the best out of the data, really, and the lidar that's collected. That's the
And
key for me.
it's a great point. I mean, it's a lot of learning. I mean, as you said, acquiring the data is one aspect, but understanding the data and working with a surveying company, or if that the surveying company is collecting that, that's additional data that they wouldn't have in the past.
Mm,
One of the reasons that we started looking at this path very early on was, the perception in the drone industry can be seen as a red ocean. If there's lots of wedding photographers or lots of
mm,
people doing scenic photos or creative work. And I think the reason working with the survey industry is this clearly, as you articulate, there's a shortage, and both industry was working together, or a surveying company actually upskilling using drones.
mm.
I think can help. And that's why I was keen to have you on the podcast. So, because I
Oh, and
think
look,
most people,
some of the drones I've seen my guys have are nothing like the little white one you've got behind you. Like these are big beasts of a drone. Like they're not like the drone show that you see when you go to the New Year's Eve party. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
the sorts of equipment that our guys are using are hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment, and it's
yeah.
because the quality and the quantity of what they can collect. And so the business case needs to be clear, and I think the proposal of what it is you need them to collect needs to be clear. And I think if we get all of that right, then what we can provide for clients is truly amazing and will be useful for many, many years to come. I was talking to a surveyor earlier today. He's got a Cessna plane, so they've got planes as well because they're gathering data. We've just really, in New South Wales, they've just finished the gravity model to identify the
Yeah,
height and the changes in height. So,
yeah,
you can't do that in a drone. You sometimes need a plane, but it's about when is the difference. And so, what can I do with a laser scanner? What can I do with a theodolite, a total station? What can I do with a laser scanner? What can I do with a drone? And I think it's about the use case for each piece of equipment, but it's just a tool at the end of the day. It's a little bit like, what can I do with my mobile phone? What can I do with my iPad? What can I do with my laptop? They're just the tool. It's actually the brains behind the use of that equipment that matters. And that's where the value comes, and that's what people are paying for. And that's what we need to value and price accordingly.
So, how do you see the survey industry adopting such technology? As you mentioned, it's an old industry. Have you seen the take up? I obviously know there's quite a few survey companies using drones.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, there's
Um,
definitely an increase. It's definitely increasing. But I think it's increasing because the technology is getting better. So in the early stages, surveyors are always the first adopters. In fact, we had CASA come and present to us at one of our conferences just before COVID, actually. And he asked the question, how many of you have your license? And 3/4 of the room raised their hand. So, and he was shocked. He'd said he'd never been to a conference with so many people who'd raised their hand that had their license, even drone conferences. So, surveyors do it the right way. They understand the importance of licensing. They understand about doing it right, and they're using them for different purposes. They're using them, they have to be fit for purpose use, and so they are going about the right way. So I think that we're always early adopters, but the technology is only probably just getting to a point now that we can go beyond and offer more for our clients and offer them greater value for the price that they're paying. And so I do think that there is greater adoption. The only reason there might not be, certainly in the regional areas, the only reason there might not be as much adoption in the cities, again, is because of CASA rules. So
Sure.
what we need, and one of the things that we potentially need to be adding into our advocacy mix, is working with CASA to get them to understand the difference between, say, somebody who might be causing mischief using drones and somebody who's actually a professional who knows what they're doing and is highly qualified and highly trained and is actually using it to gather data that can be useful even for CASA.
And you're not going to, your livelihood depends on it. So you're not there to do silly things, as you mentioned. So if you separate the recreational user from the commercial user, it's a lot easier. But as you know, I'm
Well,
sure
I
it's
mean,
not
the
going to be.
commercial user is often insured. Well, certainly all of our members have PI insurance. You can't join us unless you have PI insurance. So the risks that surveyors take, and they are covered for that risk. So they're not going to go out and just do something willy-nilly and cause all sorts of issues. They're
Yeah.
going to do it properly. And so, I think that CASA can have some confidence in that. I think the biggest problem that we face is the birds, quite frankly. I've seen a few videos of drones being taken out by birds. So
Yep. Well,
not
as long as it's,
planes, not planes, just birds.
well, hopefully it's not too many eagles when they're flying. Um, so one of the other questions I've been asked is, are you a governing body?
No, so we're a member association. So the way associations work is that you can have a professional society, which is for individuals, and then you have an industry body, which is for organisations, and then you might have a peak body, which is made up of other industry associations. So to some extent, we are we certainly are an industry association because we represent businesses and we represent, we have engineering firms that employ surveyors who are in our membership. We also have local councils and government agencies that employ surveyors in our membership. We have a few individuals, but that's a whole nother, not many, because generally speaking, we're wanting to represent the whole of business. And then, to some extent, we're also a peak body because some of our memberships comes from state-based organisations. So the Association of Consulting Surveyors in New South Wales and Victoria are members of ours, the Western Australian Institution of Surveyors, and the Consulting Surveyors in South Australia. We're working on an MOU with the Mine Surveyors, and we have a great relationship with the institution in New South Wales. We have a partnership with Consulting Surveyors in New Zealand and Canada, and so we sort of work with these bodies also to represent where possible. So we're definitely an industry association. We have a board that are all surveyors at the moment. They don't have to be surveyors. They just happen to be right now all surveyors. And they're from all over the country, which is great. And then we have a paid professional staff, which is how we operate. We don't have we have volunteers. We welcome volunteers, but most of what we do is from professionals. So I'm a certified association executive. So I have my own qualification in that space, and a couple of my team one of my other team has that qualification, and the others are working towards it. So that's how we
Okay.
operate.
So given we have you with all the background you mentioned at the start of the podcast, so an organisation, a new surveying organisation, what are some of the tips you can give them?
Yeah, so if you're going out and you're starting up on your own, that's the question. So
Yep.
if you're gonna start up on your own, my first advice is don't. If you've already
Okay.
done it, it's too late. We don't actually think that you should go out on your own. We think it's very, very hard to run a business, and we've all seen the stats of small business, and we know how difficult it is. There can be reasons you go out on your own, and perhaps it's a lifestyle thing or a choice component, sure, but it's quite difficult. It's hard to take holidays. It's hard to service multiple clients. So we actually believe in going into business with other colleagues. And I know partnerships are difficult, but we think that that having more people around you. One of the very interesting stats that we have is that one registered surveyor employs about 6 other people. So we call them job creators. So a registered or licensed surveyor will usually have, a drafty, an admin, maybe a couple of trainees, a drone pilot, I don't know, a laser scanner,
Yep. Yep.
a BIM modeler, all those sorts of things. So depending on the kind of work that you're doing, you might have those variety working for you. But we do see surveyors go out on their own, and it's a struggle. Anybody being in business on their own is hard work. So we'd recommend that you do what you can to buy into another business, because we'd like to see generational transition from some of our firms. And we'd like to see, it's a very, very collegial workforce. And so we think that working together and supporting one another is a better way to go. But okay, if you're going to do it and you decide you think by being your own boss means you can go surfing twice a week, you go right ahead, okay? So if you're going to start up, do start up, get some financial advice and legal advice, do it the right way first. And then I'm going to say, come and do our business academy, because you
Right.
need to understand, what's your vision, what's your strategy. Are you going to hire people? When are you going to hire people? How do you know what's cash flow? What's that look like? I'm very surprised often at how many don't understand financial management. And so you need to
Right.
be able to understand the finances. So come and get some very basic training that's available for you to help you get set up the right way. I'm going to say don't talk to a marketing person about your website. You can go to AI these days to create your own website, but they're still going to ask you for all sorts of. Don't put stock photos on your website. Okay, this is my biggest bugbear: stock photos. If I see another surveyor in that blue hat, I'm gonna, whether it's a male or a female. Oh my goodness. So go get a photo shoot. If you're going to go out on your own and you want to start your own website, then you have to invest in a photo shoot to get photos of yourself out there surveying. Okay. Also, can I just say, Google the name that you're choosing before you choose your name. Just
And
putting it
as
out there.
in, someone else may have the name already, or
Someone else may have the name already, have the website already, all those sorts of things. Do you know how many land something there are in surveying? I mean, my database is a very, very
come,
interesting thing to look at, let me
come and
tell
tell
you.
us how many are there?
Oh,
Just
hey,
roughly
I couldn't even tell you. There's way
more
too
than a
many.
hundred.
I went to Chat GPT and asked recently, and it
Yeah.
said to go to my website to look. So that's where it sent me. It said, no, you should go and look at
Well,
consultants. So
well, they know
yeah.
it's ranking well, right? So when that happens,
Well, that's true. That's true. So yeah, I just think there's some really, really basic things that people don't think about. So what they think about is, they think, I can do this better than my boss. I'm going
yeah,
to go and do it. Get some advice. You need to talk to somebody, and you need to talk to somebody who's successful, right? And so it's certainly a service that we offer. I
okay,
would say to anybody who's thinking about going out on their own, please, if you're going to go and start a surveying firm or a drone company or a laser scanning company or I don't know, a bathymetric company, please, by all means, ring me. I'm very available. I'd be happy to talk to you and give you my 2 cents worth before you jump in, boots and all, and potentially lose 2 years of your life.
and it's quite a significant investment from a equipment perspective alone, let alone anything else, right? At
Well,
least
it's one
looking
of
at
the things that, yeah, surveyors don't often know this, and perhaps not aware of this, but when surveyors come for a job and they want to be hired by a firm, they might ask for a salary of, I don't know, let's assume they've got some experience, they think they're pretty good, so they're going to ask for 100 grand, right? Let's just round
yeah,
number it, 100 grand. Well, that's good. So you need to understand that's your 100 grand plus your super, right? And all the, various normal things that go with employment. But
Yeah.
then there's your vehicle, then there's your equipment that costs an average of $80,000 per piece of equipment, right?
Yeah.
Then there's your uniform and all the other bits, a laptop, a phone these days, all of those things. So, really your 100,000 is already 200,000 before you've walked out the door. So this concept that we've got around, employment is quite a challenge. I think that we need to be educating everybody about the cost of employment. And we're not saying we're not going to do it. I mean, running a surveying business, we understand the costs associated with it. It's one of the most cost intensive businesses to run. It's not like saying, I'm going to go and run a IT company and all you need is a laptop. It's not like that, So, and then there's your insurance. I mean, insurance is quite expensive. We're talking, if you were going out on your own, and I'll get in trouble for quoting specific numbers, but let's just say the average insurance is $50,000 a year. That's 50,000.
Yeah.
So, it's
You
not
got to
cheap, and
you got to find at
it's
least
quite.
$5,000 worth of work for a month just to cover your insurance costs.
That's right. That's right. Well, and you should be able to get that in your first survey, just by the by. Like the average cost of a survey should be minimum 5,000.
Yeah.
But people don't do that. You see, they start up a business and they say, "Oh, it's just me. I can do this. I'm really good at this. I could knock out 10 jobs a day. I'll charge you $500." So you've just demoralized and demotivated and depriced and devalued yourself as a surveyor. So you need to be clear about, if you're going to go out on your own, you need to be clear about your costs, but you need to be clear about your value, and you need to be clear about your value proposition. And it's very easy to go into the market and be the cheapest, but you can't sustain that. And it's not sustainable. And to anybody who's out there who thinks that they're going to go and get a surveyor for $500, you get what you pay for. So just,
Yeah. So obviously,
I wouldn't
you
pay
explained
$500.
the employment costs, which makes sense. What about subcontractors? What are some of the risks, or are there benefits?
Yeah, and
If
look, certainly a lot of guys do go out on their own and they say, look, in fact, I was recently in one of our states and there was a guy who'd gone out on his own and he was subcontracting back to the firm that he'd previously worked for. And great, that's what he's choosing to do and so on. I think you've still got all the same costs. You've still got to get your own vehicle, you've got to get all your own equipment, you've got to get your own insurance. So you've still got all of those things and you still are providing a service to that company and other companies that needs to be valued. And so you need to understand what pricing structure you should have and make sure that you're running a profitable business. And profit means paying yourself properly as well.
Yeah.
Often in small business, we don't pay ourselves properly. So you need to be paying yourself properly and making sure that you're actually running a profitable venture. Otherwise, you won't last very long and you'll end up going back to that firm that you don't like, or perhaps another one.
That you hopefully like.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. So where do you see the industry over the next sort of 3 to 5 years with all this sort of technology? And obviously, you've seen lots of stuff about machine learning and AI, how it's going to change our lives forever.
Mm.
How do you see all this evolving between the 3, 5, 10 year period?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a move towards the digital space, and I think that is the future. I think that surveyors are going to be the data analysts and the data managers in future years. I think they already are. The data that they collect, whether it's for BIM models, digital twins, all of those sorts of things, they are gathering the data, analysing that data. We already see, fabrication companies, steel companies, engineering firms coming to surveyors to help them analyse that data, Cloud Point, etc. Point Cloud? I always get that around the wrong way.
Point
Uh,
cloud, yeah.
Point Cloud, thank you. I don't know why I
It's
say
okay.
cloud point, but anyway, point cloud data. So really critical, and surveyors understand that, and they know how to interpret it and digest it. So I think that's going to be their role. I think they're going to continue to be the consultants required for the built environment, for construction sector, into the long term. I don't see that going away. I mean, we have a housing crisis right now. That's not going to be solved in the next 3 to 5 years. The governments can predict and plan how many houses they're going to build, but I can tell you that I've seen the plan data and how many lots are being created, and we're not creating enough lots of land to build the houses that we need. So we're going to need surveyors for many, many, many years to come. There is a very, very strong future in surveying, and the technology is only enhancing that. So it's increasing our productivity. It's increasing the value of the product that we can provide for clients, and it is getting clients a better outcome at the end of the day because they've got more data to play with. The problem is they don't know how to play with the data, which is why they'll always need to come back to their surveyor to say, okay, now we want to do this and now we want to do that. Can you help us? So there's a whole lot of, I've seen a whole lot of opportunities in the asset management space as well. That's, potential. There's so many potential areas for us to go into that, there's a very, very strong future. Digital twins are still a bit of the buzz term and so on. What we've got to do is sort of work out ownership of data, collaboration around data, governance of data is going to be very critical into the future. What does that look like? What does that mean? For our
Why do you
profession,
think it's a sorry? Why do you think
no.
it's a bit of a buzzword, the digital twin?
Because I think at the moment it's only government producing it. So, which is great. I've seen lots. I mean, I go to a lot of conferences for surveying in every state regularly, and every single one has a presentation on digital twins.
Yeah,
And, I think they're great, but I'm not sure how we're going to get them out beyond the government sector. I mean, I've seen if you haven't seen the digital twin of Cross River Rail in Brisbane, you absolutely need to. It is a fabulous, fabulous project. I really encourage you to go to the centre that they've got in the middle of town to have a look at that experience, the experience centre, for what they've done there. And the reason that digital twin model works is because it's wholly government owned. So they can have the lights and have the fire and have the everything.
yeah,
But the problem with our buildings, so we can build a new building in the middle of Sydney, middle of Melbourne, middle of Hobart, wherever you're going to build it, Perth, whatever. And then so the developer creates a BIM model, creates a digital twin of the building that they've created. Who do they give that model to at the end of the day? And who's going to access it? And who's going to use it? And who's going to update it? And who's going to...
yeah,
So when you've got multiple ownerships inside buildings, that's the problem. I don't think that's a problem we've solved yet. And so at the moment, digital twins are successful inside the public sector. I'm not sure how we're going to get them out into the private sector. I attend many workshops, many roundtables, many sessions about this. And so I'd like to think that we could get either strata managers to own it, facilities managers to own it, the strata committee. I don't know. I don't know the answer. Unless you own the whole building, who's
yeah.
going to
And,
own the
and
model?
and I think part of it is because, um, like you mentioned, no one knows what to do with it, and do we even pay the extra money to digitize something like that or create a digital twin because there's a fair relative cost and there's obviously data and I guess the benefit long term could be a learning ability, obviously, whether you're comparing that set of data over a period of time. Um, and I think this is where the survey industry, and maybe I'm generalizing here, but that's where I think the focus has to be is looking at utilizing some of these digital assets. Obviously, no one's taking away the licensing aspect and all of the good things that surveyors do. Um, but I think trying to adopt such technology may help with obviously some of the challenges you have with field force, right? So, because that's the challenge I've had. Like every time we look at a digital twin, because that's what we generate, the next question is how do we help the stakeholders? I think it's broadened the stakeholders. If you look at surveys, they're normally delivering things CAD based or BIMs, like you mentioned, and you're working with a very technical stakeholder, and the person or group or customer who's paying for it has no idea what's going on because it's so technical.
Yeah.
And something like a digital twin is allowing a much broader stakeholder group to understand what's actually going on. As well as the ability to, when you start bringing things like machine learning and AI, you can now start to build intelligence in that data set. So I like to see the survey industry actually adopting such technology where they can actually go, well, how do we benefit from this data collection today? Because in 5 years' time, if you don't have it, it's too late.
Mm.
So,
I would say that from a surveying perspective, we have embraced it. The challenge is getting clients to understand it and to
sure.
understand the benefits for them and how they can use it over time. So I think those of us in the industry get it. It's about getting that message out and how we tell the story of where it's possible. And I think as technology advances, and AIs and all those sorts of things can interrogate the
Yeah,
data perhaps for us, I think that will be very, very useful and very, very good for the end user. And I think part of our problem is the end user not understanding what they've got and how to use it. And how to get the most out of it. So I think really as an industry, as a broader industry across all of that space, I think that we've really got to get that message out and help them understand and not speak too technically to them. We're very good at the technical talk. I think we've actually got to tell them the story about why it's a benefit for them and how they would, be able to use this to
yeah.
potentially save them money, save them time, save them in future DAs and future developments and all of those things. So, and how it's a value add to the overall build. That's really where I think we've got to get to with it.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Mm.
And it's not easy. And as you said, it's like drone technology. It's evolved and it's got much more efficient, more cost effective. So it's like with anything, I think adoption takes time. And I think we're definitely a better place than where we were probably 2, 3 years ago. So, Michelle, thank you very much for your time. It's very very informative. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you, and if they're hopefully
Yeah,
not
great.
starting
Yeah,
any businesses?
pop onto our website, have a bit of a look around, see what you like. You'll find our contact details there. You'll find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty avid on LinkedIn, so you'll find me most days posting about some of the things that we're up to and some of the things we're doing. So feel free to find me on LinkedIn or have a look at our website.
Well, thank you very much for your time. It's certainly been very informative, and hopefully we get to chat to you in the next few months again and get an update, and maybe get some of your peers to join us as well, because I'm sure there's lots more questions that the viewers and listeners want to have as well. So
Absolutely,
until next time.
Sean. Very open to it and very happy to discuss surveying anytime we can. Surveyors vital to Australia's development. We make the world go round.
Awesome. Thank you.